So, wo ist der andere Applaus? Wo war denn der?
Nein, negativ. Ich wiederhole, negativ. Schön, dass wir darüber gesprochen haben, aber nein. Gut, und jetzt nochmal von vorne.
gibt's doch nicht. Ich habe immer so doppelt. Das gibt's doch nicht. Das muss doch ein passendes Symbol sein. The first songs of the morning birds wakened Teasel in the dark, and he lay there on the ground by the fire, huddled in the blanket he had brought from the cruiser, peering up at the late stars beyond the treetops. It had been years since he slept out in the woods. Over 20 years, he realized, counting back to 1950. Not the end of 1950. Sleeping in frozen foxholes in Korea hardly qualified. Hell no. The last time he had really camped out was that spring when he got his draft notice. He decided to enlist in the Marines. And he and Orville hiked into the hills for the first weekend. It was warm enough. Now he was stiff from sleeping on the ground. His clothes were damp from where the dew had soaked through the blanket. And even near the fire was bone cold. But he had felt this alive in years. He had not felt alive in years. Excited to be in action again. Eager to chase after the kid. The kid named Rambo. There was no point, though, in rousing everybody until Shingleton came back with the supplies. And the rest of the men. And for now, only one awake. He loved being alone this way. So different from the nights he had been spending alone since Anna had left. He wrapped himself tighter in the blanket. Then the smell reached him, and he looked, and Orville was sitting at the end of the fire, dragging on a thin, self-rolled cigarette, the smoke drifting toward Teasel in the cool, early breeze. I didn't know you were awake, Teasel whispered, not to disturb the others. How long? Before you. But I've been awake for over an hour. I know it. I don't sleep much anymore. Not because I can. I just begrudge the time spent. Clutching his blanket, Teasel shifted close to Orville and lit a cigarette off the glow of a stick from the fire. The flames were flickering low, and when Teasel churned the stick back into them, they rose warm, crackling. He had been right when he told Orville this would be like old times, although he had not believed in them. Needing Orville to come along and disliking himself for using that kind of emotional argument on the man. But the feel of gathering firewood, tossing away stones and twigs to make the ground less rough, made them feel gay. Spreading his blanket, he had forgotten how solid and good that all was. So she left, Orville said. Teasel did not want to talk about it. She was the one who had left, not the other way round. Pause. And that made it look as though he was in the wrong. Maybe he was, but she was too. Still, he could not bring himself to put blame on her, just so Orville might not think poorly of him. He tried to explain it neutrally. She might come back. She's thinking about that. I haven't let on much. But for a while there, we were arguing quite a bit. You're not an easy man to get along with. Well, Christ, neither are you. But I've lived with the same woman for 40 years, and as far as I can guess, Spear hasn't thought about leaving. I know people must be asking you this a lot now, but considering what you and I are, I believe I have a right. What were the arguments about? He almost did not answer. Talking about very personal things almost embarrassed him, especially this which he had not yet reasoned out. Who was right whether he was justified? Kids, he said. And then, since he had begun, he went on, I asked her for at least one. I don't care, boy or girl. It's just that I'd like someone to be to me like I was to you. I don't know how to explain it. I even feel stupid talking about it. I'm even stuttering. Look at me. Don't you tell me that's stupid, buddy. Not when I tried so long to have a kid of my own. Like hell. Tease looked at him. Oh, you're like my own, Orville said. Like my own. But I can't help wondering what sort of kid Bill and I would have made if we had been able. That's kind of selfish, I guess. He hurt, as if all these years he had been no more to Orville than the once needy child of a dead best friend. He could not accept that. It was more self-doubt from Anna leaving, and now that he was talking about her, he had to get it in the open. Finished. Last Christmas, he said. Before we came to dinner at your place, we went over to Shingleton's for a drink, and watching his two kids, the look on the other face with their presents. Wham, I thought. Maybe it would be good to have one. It certainly surprised me that at my age I wanted one, and it sure as hell surprised her. We talked about it, and she kept saying no. And after a while, I suppose I made too big a thing of it. What happened, it's like she weighed me against the trouble she thought a baby would be, and left. Crazy thing is, as much as I can't sleep for wishing her to come back, in a way, I'm glad she went. I'm on my own again. No more arguments, free to do what I want, when I want, come home late without calling to explain I'm sorry to miss dinner. Go out if I feel like it. Screw around. Sometimes I even think the worst part about her leaving is how much a divorce will cost me. And at the same time, I can't tell you how much I need her back with me. His breath came out in the frost. The birds were gathered loudly. He watched Orville drag on the last of his cigarette close to his fingers. Their joints gnawed and yellow from nicotine. And what about we're after? Are you talking it all out on him? No. You sure? You know I am. I don't act tougher than I have to. You know as well as I do that a town stays safe because of the little things kept in control. You can't do anything to prevent something big like a holdup or a murder. If somebody wants to do them bad enough, he will. But it's the little things that make a town what it is, that you can watch to make it safe. If I had just grinned and took what the kid was handing me fairly soon, I might have got used to the idea and let other kids hand it to me. In a little while, I would have been letting other things go by. It's me I was concerned about as much as the kid. I can't allow myself to loosen up. I'm packing what they lacking. I can't keep order one time and not another. You're still awfully eager to chase after him, even though your part of the job is ended. This is state police business right now. But it's my man he killed, and it's my responsibility to bring him in. I want all my force to know I'll stop at nothing to get at anybody who hurts them. Ove looked at the pinched butt of the cigarette he was holding and nodded, flicking it into the fire. The shadows were lifting, trees and bushes distinct. It was to fall down, and before long the light would appear to dim again, and then the sun would show and everything would be clear. They could have been up and starting now, Teasel thought. Where was Shingleton with the men and supplies? He should have been back a half hour ago. Maybe something had gone wrong. Maybe the state police was stopping him from coming in. Teasel coming into town. Teasel churned a stick in the low fire, raising flames. Where was he? Where was he? Then he had heard the first bark from the dog, far off in the woods, and it stirred the dogs that were leashed to the trees nearest Oval. There were 5 of them, and they had been awake, stomachs flat out on the ground, eyes intent on Orville. Now they were up, excited, barking in answer. Shush, Orville said. Wanted them to be quiet. They looked at him and went quiet. Their withers were trembling. Ward, Lester, and the young deputy fidgeted into their sleep. They were down close to the other side of the fire, hugging their blankets. Ugh, Ward said. In a minute, Lester said asleep. The dog barked far off again, though sounding a little closer, and the dogs by Orville cocked their ears, barking excitedly in return. Shh, Orville said stronger. Get down. Instead, they jerked their heads toward another bark far off, their nostrils quivering. Get down, Orville demanded, and slowly, one by one, they obeyed. Yeah. Ward squirmed on his side on the blanket, knees up near his chest. Like all grown men do. What's wrong? What's happening? Just time to get up, Teasel said. What? Lester said and squirmed. God, it's cold. Time to get up. Time to concentrate. In a minute. That's about how long they'll take to get there. Do you hear that? People were crashing through the underbrush out there, breaking closer. Teasel lit another cigarette, his mouth and throat dry, and felt the energy building in him. It might be the state police, he all of a sudden realized, and stood hurriedly, drawing on his cigarette, straining to see into the forest in the direction of the cracking underbrush. God, it's cold, Lester said. I hope Shingleton's bringing hot food. Teasel hoped it was just Shingleton and the deputies out there and not the state police. Abruptly, 5 men were in sight, rushing between the trees and through the bushes in the pale, cold light. But Teasel could not make out what color their uniforms were. They were talking to each other. One man tripped and swore, but Teasel could not identify the voices. If they were state police, he was trying to figure some way of keeping in charge. Then they were close, hurrying out of the trees up this brief rise. And Teasel saw Shingleton stumbling after the dog that was straining on its leash. And he saw it was one man behind. Was his own men behind, never so glad to see them before. They were carrying bulged out burlap sacks, and rifles and rope, and Shingleton had a field radio slung over his shoulder. The dog lurching him into camp. Hot food, Lester was up, asking him. Did you bring hot food? Shingleton apparently did not hear. He was out of his breath, handing the dog over to Orville. Lester turned in a rush to the deputies. Did you bring hot food? Ham and egg sandwiches, the deputy said, chest heaving. Thermos of coffee. I made coffee. You want some coffee? Here's coffee. Lester reached for the sack the deputy carried. Not in there, the deputy told him. Mitch, behind me. Mitch was grinning, opening his sack, handing out wax paper wrapped sandwiches, and everybody grabbed, eating. You covered one hell of a distance last night in the dark, Shingleton told Teasel, catching his breath, leaning against a tree. I figured to find you in less than half an hour, and here it took me twice. Twice that. We couldn't move as fast as then last night, remember? Mitch said. We had more to carry. They covered one hell of a distance just the same. Teasel could not decide whether Shingleton was making an excuse for being late or whether he was really admiring. They all had the same voices. We was confused, he thought. Teasel bit into a sandwich, greasy and barely warm, but Christ, it was good. He took a paper cut that Mitch had put full of steamed coffee. He blew on it and sipped, burning his upper lip and the roof of his mouth and his tongue, feeling the cold mulch of the egg and ham hot in his mouth. What's going on back there? Shingleton laughed. The state police had a fit over what you pulled. The state police had a fit over what you pulled. He stopped to chew into a sandwich. Like you said, I waited in that field last night and they showed up 10 minutes after you climbed into the woods. They were sweet Jesus mad over you taking advantage of the little daylight you had left so you could chase after the kid and stay in the game. It surprised me they figured it out so fast what you were up to. But what's happened back there? Shingleton grinned proudly and bit another mouthful of the sandwich. I spent half the night at the station with them. And finally they agreed to play along with you. They go on the block, the roads down out of the hills and stay out of there. It took some amount of convincing to get them not to come in, I'll tell you. Thanks. You knew Shingleton was waiting for that. Shingleton nodded, chewing. Well, finally, just think, was I said, to keep better than they did. And no better than any word from them? Who is he? Any word from them? Who he is, or what else he might be wanted for? They're working on it. And they said, keep reporting on this radio. The first sign of trouble, they say they're coming in with everything they got. There won't be trouble. Somebody kicked Belfort. They're awake. He said, pointed to the young deputy smuggled in his blanket by the fire. That guy will sleep through anything. Orwell patted the dog Shingleton had given him. He brought it over to lick Belfort's face, and the young deputy whipped up, angrily wiping saliva from his mouth. What the hell's going on? Saliva. 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 Saliva from his mouth. To salivate with pleasure. To salivate. Saliva sample. Saliva sample. Ich weiß nicht. Speichel, Digga. Saliva. Supper. The man laughed, and in the middle stopped surprised. There was a drone of a motor. It was too far off for Teasel to guess what kind it was, but it was running more distinct all the time. And then deep and thunderous the helicopter loomed into view over the treetops, circling huge, sunlight glinting. What the? How did they know we were here? The dogs got barking. Above the din of the motor, the blades shrieked through the air. Woof, 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 woof. Something new the state police gave me. Shingleton said, bringing out something new the state police gave me. Shingleton said, bringing out what looked like a dark gray cigarette case. It gives off a radio signal. They said they want to know where you are at all times and made me carry it and gave the other half to the guy you asked to lend this helicopter. Teasel bolted down the last of a sandwich. Who's the deputy up there with him? Lang. Does your radio connect up there? You bet it does. The radio wells where Shingleton had set it in the low crook of a tree. Teasel flipped the switch of the control panel and peering up at where the helicopter circled close. Sunlight glinting off the shrieking blades, he said loud into the microphone. Lang, Portis, all set up there? Whenever you are, Chief. The voice was flat and scratchy. It sounded like it came from miles away. Teasel could barely hear it in the roar from the motor. He glanced around at his men. Orwell was hurriedly gathering the paper cups and wax paper from sandwiches, tossing them on the fire. The others were strapping on equipment, slinging on rifles. The cups and papers and ashes. Orwell was kicking dirt on the flames. All right then, Teasel said. Let's move it. He had trouble hooking the microphone back on the radio he was so excited about. Da fällt mir gerade was ein. Ich habe letztens einen Podcast gesehen und Podcasts schießen ja wie Pilze aus dem Boden und jeder hat eine Meinung dazu zu sagen und das Krasse ist, jeder denkt immer, er hat die beste Meinung gepachtet und ist gleichzeitig auch die Nummer 1, was im Hip-Hop sehr verbreitet ist, wo eigentlich alle denken, sie sind die Nummer 1 und der hat gesagt, der hat die wahnwitzige Aussage gemacht, dass der Wu-Tang Clan nicht zu den Top 10 Crews im Hip-Hop gehört. Ich glaube, er hat sogar noch übertrieben und hat gesagt, er hat erst gesagt, nicht Top 5 und dann hat er es noch übertrieben und hat gesagt, ich glaube nicht mal Top 10. Der Wu-Tang Clan. Dann hat der andere gesagt, ich weiß gar nicht, wer das war, ich kannte den nicht. Dann hat der andere gesagt, was laberst du da? Top 5 gebe ich dir gerade noch, aber Top 10? Und dann hat er halt gesagt, ja gut, dann sag doch mal, was sind denn deine Top 5? Und dann hat er gesagt, die Top 5 Crews im Hip-Hop. Outkast, das gebe ich ihm. Dann hat er gesagt, De La Soul, Run DMC, 8-Ball und MJG. Und ich weiß nicht mehr, was das 5. war. Was war das 5.? UGK wahrscheinlich. Was ja schon mal zeigt, dass er total beschränkt ist. Also ich kenne den, das ist nichts Persönliches. Ich sage jetzt nur, es geht jetzt nur um diese Aussage. Deine Aussage ist beschränkt und man merkt direkt, dass du auf den Süden fixiert bist, weil du da wahrscheinlich herkommst, weil du damit irgendwas zu tun hast, weil Jay Prince dir im Nacken hockt vielleicht und dass du De La Soul und Run DMC nur nimmst, wie andere Leute halt immer sagen, dass ja natürlich ist Eminem und Nas und Jay-Z die besten MCs, so, ne? Da möchte ich kurz antworten drauf, reacten möchte ich da kurz drauf. Der Wu-Tang Clan, bis auf Outkast. Weil Outkast ist meiner Meinung nach, wie der Name schon sagt, außer Konkurrenz, weil die sind einfach, weil die einfach, der Grad zwischen Normalheit und Coolheit bei denen ist gleichwertig hoch. Auch wenn Andre 3000 einen verrückten Kleidungsstil hat, aber ich finde, wenn du denen beim Reden zuhörst, die sind einfach die normalsten Personen und gleichzeitig die coolsten. Also da ist es quasi, da ist Normalheit und Coolheit, also nett sein und sympathisch und cool, beides auf extrem hohem Level, plus die Musik natürlich noch. Aber also die sind raus. Ne? So, wenn der Wu-Tang Clan, besser gesagt, der Wu-Tang Clan im Vergleich zu denen, die du aufgezählt hast, muss nicht mal ans Mic steppen und ist schon cooler als die alle zusammen. Und du behauptest, die anderen sind besser. Ich finde 36 Chambers, weil der hat dann noch so gesagt, irgendein Album vom 8-Ball und MJG aus dem Jahre 1993 oder so, burnt alles, was der Wu-Tang Clan hier rausgebracht hat. Da möchte ich antworten, dass das Album 36 Chambers, das ich persönlich ziemlich beschissen finde, da sind 5 Sekunden von dem Intro, von dem einen Song, burnen das ganze Album. Ich habe es mir nämlich angehört von 8-Ball und MJG. Das ist nicht schlecht, aber während du diese 5 Sekunden hörst, siehst du im Kopf die Bilder des Wu-Tang Clans und dann haben sie schon gewonnen. Plus diese 5 Sekunden burnen das Album vom Sound. Ohne Bass. Ohne Bassfrequenzen. Ja. Und das wollte ich noch loswerden. Ich lebe für Hip-Hop.